Welcome to Generations, a show which helps people 50 and better lead happy, healthy, and productive lives. Our moderator today is Nadia Giordana. Here's Nadia.
Hello and welcome to Generations. I'm Nadia Giordana, and co-hosting with me today is Diane Winkler.
Yes, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
And our guest is Ruth Bachman.
Hello.
Ruth is the author of Growing Through the Narrow Spots, and she is the founder of the Hourglass Fund Project, and she's a mountain climber. Ruth is here today to share her very personal story of challenge and triumphing over those challenges, and also to offer inspiration to any one of us that might be facing challenges similar to that. And Ruth, let's start by having you tell us about your story.
Okay. Well, I am a cancer survivor, and the message that I share grew out of my experience with cancer. And I describe cancer as the narrow spot in an hourglass, and I'm the sand. I've traveled from the top through that tight spot to the bottom, the same sand, but with a different arrangement. You might have noticed that I do not have a left hand, but I was left-handed for 54 years before my cancer diagnosis. There was a soft, non-painful lump on the inside of my left wrist that I ignored for about 7 weeks, hoping that it would go away. And an MRI revealed a 6-inch mass that began in my hand, filled my wrist, and extended up my forearm. And so I knew right away that in order to not have sarcoma anymore, I was going to not have my hand anymore. Now, you would think that that would bring a pretty dramatic change to my life, and it certainly did, so there was a lot to get used to. But what I realized is that I could go kicking and screaming through that narrow spot, or I could embrace the fact that what I was going to be able to do was live life after cancer and successful cancer treatment. And so it changed my perspective, and it changed my attitude.
My goodness.
How many years has it been, did you say?
It has been almost 12 years.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Almost 12 years. And yet there are still things that I encounter almost every day that appear to be two-handed. And on those days, I'm given the opportunity to learn to do something a new way, to perhaps find someone to help me. And I've discovered that asking for help is a gift to the person being asked, as well as a gift to myself in allowing that help. And then sometimes I simply decide gracefully not to do something.
Okay, I've never heard anybody say that. Never.
What is that? What is that?
About how you face things like this, how you changed.
Right.
What were you like before?
Oh, I was really kind of the same sand.
Oh, that's what I would think. You just don't.
I was, and so it was having to learn how to live my life as a right-handed person and a one-handed person that was the most significant change. But it was having to relearn how to do all of those things that you typically do. But I could also look at it with a different attitude. And Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, wrote that the last of the human freedoms is to determine one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Wow. And so I chose the attitude of, I get to be alive. And if I'm going to be alive, I may as well learn the things that I need to learn and choose not to do some of the things that very few things that I used to do.
Wonderful.
Yes, you went mountain climbing, so that's one of the things you did go and try to do. Where was that? And tell us a little bit about that story.
The mountain climbing adventure was a trip of a lifetime. It was with an organization called Above and Beyond Cancer, and they are located in Des Moines, Iowa, and they take cancer survivors and caregivers on amazing travel adventures. And so it was the fall of 2013, and I went to Nepal. Flew into Kathmandu, took one of those scary little planes to Lukla, one of the shortest runways in the world, and then we climbed a total of 3 mountains.
Oh my gosh.
And I had never done anything at the altitude before. I had trained very well to go on the trip, but I had never experienced that altitude.
How long did the training last?
Oh, well, I found out that I was going in July, and then the trip was in September.
Okay.
So for 2 months, I did a whole lot of stairs. That I did a whole lot
Develop
of stairs.
those leg muscles.
Yes, yes. Well, and to really work on my balance as well. The word that I learned was proprioceptively challenging situations, and that's walking on uneven terrain
Now spell
and
it.
on rocks. No, I can't spell it.
And doing everything with the one hand, too.
Yes, well, and I did have a walking stick, but the thing to remember is that I wasn't by myself. I was with a group of people who wanted me to succeed, and then the key ingredient for any trip in Nepal is the Sherpa, because they are an amazing race of people, and they are so helpful, and they have such a servant heart, that I found that all I needed to do was the first day say, would you stuff my sleeping bag in my compression sack, which is not a one-hand friendly thing to do. And they did it, and every day after that they showed up to stuff my sleeping bag.
Well, and wouldn't you say that feeling, and I don't know if you got to the top of the mountain or not, but wherever you got to, the highest part that you got to, the idea of, I'm here, I can look out across the rest of the world, that must be a very uplifting feeling.
It was wonderful, and we actually, the trip was to summit 3 mountains, and I did 2 of them. The highest that I summited was about 18,000 feet, but the last one would have gone to 24,000 feet, and I only made it to about 19,500 feet. I did not go all the way to the summit with the ice and snow. I was exhausted by the time I got there, so I stopped. And, being able to say to myself, I have done enough, and to feel good about that was really a powerful personal experience.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, boy.
What would you say to someone who, you go through a traumatic experience, a cancer that has to be very frightening, and you come out on the other side? What would you say to someone who has gone through something similar, that how does a person overcome that fear that something else might happen? Once something negative happens in your life, it's, oh, wow, I'm not completely invulnerable.
Oh, that's for sure. Change is inevitable. Change in every way. Change in our living circumstances, in our bodies, in our lives, in the people that we love, and all of that change, again, is represented by that narrow spot. And I have found that if I am willing to sit quietly, patiently, and listen to my heart, that I really have discovered resources, kind of by sifting through the sand that has gone through that narrow spot. I found resources about myself, resources in the people who are in my community of support, in my family, and I have books and quotes and poems and songs even that I go back to that support me when I'm going through another challenging time, and can encourage me to know that that what I get to choose is my attitude, and if I can have a positive attitude going through, then eventually I will achieve the goal.
Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely. And I once heard you say something about a person should name their narrow spot and tell those stories. Say more about that.
Oh, that is absolutely a key component, I think, to be able to move forward, to name your narrow spots, to name those challenges in life. And by telling their stories, you are giving voice to stories that really need to be heard. And you need to tell them for yourself, because that is a part of the grieving process, and all change represents loss of one kind or another. And in grieving, if you are able to talk about it or work on it in some way, have some project, something that brings voice to that change, and then after that, then you pay attention and you find the resources that have helped you through that, and then you hold those resources kind of in your hip pocket so that the next time something happens, you have a shorter way to be able to find the end.
And you
my.
put it all together in an inspirational book that Growing Through the Narrow Spots. When did you do the book? When was it released?
Well, the book was released in 2013.
Okay.
And most people write a book and then go out to speak, but I was a speaker first and wrote the book afterward. And it is a roadmap of sorts. It actually was a 2014 winner of the Best Inspirational Gift Book from the Midwest Independent Publishers Association.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I had heard it won
you.
awards.
Wow.
And so it is a book that you can pick up and read a page or two and look at the beautiful photographs that are there that my husband took and that our publisher put together in this beautiful book. And hopefully it is something, it is not a 12-step program on how you too can survive cancer or amputation, but it is a roadmap for any kind of challenge. It's not just a book about cancer. It's really a book about
Living.
how to adapt to change.
It is a lot about adapting to
That
change,
is.
isn't it?
It is.
And we all have many different ways of adapting to those kinds of changes.
There is no one way to go.
Yeah,
there's no
and
rule on
there
it,
is
is there?
there is no
None.
rule at all, and everybody needs to find their own way. But
They
I do
do.
believe that everyone can find a way.
I do too. I really do too.
And you speak around the Twin Cities and other places too, don't you?
I do. I have traveled nationally and spoken, and have also done a number of things here in the Twin Cities. And I've discovered about myself that I'm not very interested in being one of those speakers who hops on a plane and goes to talk to a various audience somewhere else. I love the speaking, and that's very meaningful. But I have so many other things in my life that are important, like 4 grandchildren, and so I like to be able to have time to be with them as well as
Absolutely.
feel my
Absolutely.
passion of sharing this message.
Oh, that's great.
wonderful. That is so special.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Well, do you have some inspirational things to say to the viewers who might be facing some challenges, whatever that might be?
Well, I would certainly encourage them to name their narrow spots, to really spend the time to sit and listen to your heart and to examine what it is that this change, this loss has brought to your life. Because if you ask yourself what is truly lost, and then you ask yourself what remains. I lost my hand, but the rest of me is here. You have had a loss in your family, you have had a loss in your life, but the rest of you is here. And how is it that you can find the resources and look for the possibilities to move forward?
That's wonderful advice. Oh, I could pick up on every one of those things. There's so much to that because my husband has dementia and I'm taking care of him. And I have the challenges, as you know what it's all about. And I do work well with him.
Right.
And that keeps us going.
Yes, and the other important thing is that you need to take care of yourself.
That's why I'm here
The
today.
care of the caregiver
That's
is really
right.
a key component to be
It
able
is.
to maintain the integrity of your being and authenticity of
I
who
do.
you are. That's
I
good.
Well,
do.
it looks
That's-
like we're running out of time, but
Oh.
Ruth, thank you so much
You're so welcome.
for being here, and Diane for
Oh,
co-hosting.
this is
And thank you for
wonderful.
watching. Don't go away, though. We have another guest coming right up.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
just could sit